relationship yet with federal government. So we invoke our own right to get prayer. This is a special event too, so it's been a year since the passing of my elder. And so we ask for prayer and hands off, gentlemen, to open this meeting.
Creator, we come to you today humble and grateful to be here together as a group one more time. Bless those that have come here, and be with those that are not able to come here for there are many reasons, distance, incarceration, sickness or illness, and any other reasons. Be with them wherever they are. We need to be together, all together, united and speaking together as one. Be with those of us here that are guided to talk and speak and help us to make wise decisions and use wise words. Bless this whole meeting that we're about to have. And once again, we're grateful and thankful for this one more day. We pray all this to you in your name.
Skills are lacking. Okay. First item on the agenda is now that the meeting is officially open. It is 10. 10:17. The meeting is open. Motion by Rudy Perez and second by Fidel Trinidad. So. Okay. Elders Committee is the first item on our agenda. Pretty much what kind of touches base with what Richard was doing with his prayer is that we need to start including our elders more and more with being a part of what we want for our future. We as elders have seen it, heard it. We are the wisdom that we carry within us. Is strength enough alone just to forward us through our children, and so that our children are being raised in a traditional way, the do's and don'ts to be uniformed in the community. I strongly encourage that if an elder says, hey, that kid shouldn't do that, and we're a tribal function or a function that involves our people, then that should be taken with a lot more sincerity as far as that middle generation that doesn't quite understand. They were raised without morals and values. Literally, they were. And so it's just now this revival with this new generation that we're in now. It's now starting to understand that there is a need to have elders in our lives. And I feel that too with the loss of our elder over a year ago. You know, there's a big empty void there that needs to be filled. I can't do it alone, so I have to rely on other elders to help me. And so we're losing our matriarchs, our mothers, our storytellers. Our mothers are the ones that teach our children all the things they need to learn as their children. Everything from yes, no, don't touch, don't grab. But the fathers are the ones that enforce it too. And that role model of that we look up to as children usually are the fathers. You're guided by the fathers also, not to exclude them. And we're losing them really fast. We lost 6 elders this last year. Not just my family alone, Richard's family. We lost our oldest female elder. And you know, and then we lost our last full-blood elder. And it takes a big toll on our people because they look around like, what do we do now? And I still encourage that we in that generation group that we're now, that we instill that our children should be in more contact with their elders. Bring the elders. Don't ask. Just grab them and let's go to this event. Remember now, the Lipan people were traditionally not powwow people. We inherited after the 1930s in secrecy how we would have to perform a lot of our ceremonies in secrecy, even our puberty ceremonies. Up until recently, when our elder Mingo had decided to start having them again, those were always held in secret. And so that time is over now, because there's a huge gap in our culture that we need to fill that gap up now, that we're now in a position where we as elders can provide that assistance now. And so that's the elders committee section is pretty much what I want to talk is just I'm very, very thankful for our elders here, Fidel, Richard, I don't know about Rudy, but and Mingo, because our elders they have filled in the gap. I mean, as you know, most of you know, I am pursuing a higher education. You know, when I'm now to the point now where I am considered the expert when it comes to ENDE, period. There's no other expert. That's me. There used to be an expert. His name was Robert Jackson. He worked with the Bureau of Indian Affairs, Office of Federal Acknowledgement. He was the one that's in charge of reviewing and reading all the petitions that involve Apaches. He retired. You know what his field of specialty was? Missions in Mexico City. Nothing to do with Lipans, nothing to do with Apaches in the southwest of the United States. So it left a big void at the Bureau, and I'm in this huge legal dispute with them right now to tell them that I am the expert. And so what makes me an expert? The credentials that I have. These are the fields that I've chosen. But I still need help. And so we now move into item 2, and this is just old business that we're going through really quick. Item 2 is the federal acknowledgement, the Office of Federal Acknowledgement. It's the 7 guidelines which make us who we are as a tribe. Even the term tribe is like a bad word. You know, most people would rather prefer to be called indigenous. The term that's being used now at the United Nations and with most tribes in the north, they want to be considered citizens, not members. Members is like having a card. Does that sound familiar? You know, we want to be citizens. We want to be included, not excluded. And so with the inclusion comes the reality that, well, if we're going to be inclusive, in other words, we're going to be a part of what we're trying to do, then we need to also be willing to show our younger ones too. So the first items, they come together. I'm going to read, because it is an agenda item, I'm going to read A through G real quick. The 7 parts that we're looking at is CIF 83A, which is external identification of groups as American Indian identities on substantial continuous basis since 1900. Okay, means that we have to prove ourselves up from now to 1900, from 2015 to that date. It changed for us. This last August, the federal government finally changed the Bureau of Indian Affairs acknowledgement process. The 83 CIF, they changed it. We now are not required, because we have not filed a petition, we're not required to follow the old petition format, which the old petition format says that you have to go back to the time of the first dinosaur to present. We have not filed a petition. We are only going to go back to 1900. Makes it a lot easier for us. Okay. The genealogy, and for that, for each one of these items, we're going to be asking the community members or our citizens that we need your help. If you have an expertise in the field that are related in any way to A through G, you know, please see me and just sign your name on this agenda that I have up here, and with your phone number so that I can contact you, because we have a lot of PhDs as citizens, but we also have a lot of people who went to school in history or government affairs, and so on. A lot of these items interwoven. Okay, and so we're now looking for the rest of the committee members that we need for federal acknowledgement. And so the second part is the genealogical part. It's the 83 CIF 7B. This petitioning group consists of district community existed from historical times to present. Guess what? Texas, if your family lived in a specific area since 1932 to present, that's all it needs. Most of us here, our families are listed. For example, our family lived in Pettis since 1900s. So we form an identity as a family, the Castro family, living in Pettis. Doesn't have to. The law does not say you have to be identified as being Indian or American Indian or Native American, as long as the core of your family has been in one specific area, encompassing a 100-mile radius circle. But guess what? It's based on the fact that your traditional territorial homeland range. Well, guess what for us? 14 million acres of homeland range. So anywhere, literally anywhere in Texas, we can live for the last 100 years, and that is we fulfill that criteria of the genealogy, but you got to have all your genealogical information attached to that. Okay? When we get to the enrollment section, which is new business, I'm going to just touch on it real quick what it takes for an individual file to be processed, because a lot of you have waited for more than a year. Okay. The next part is the historical committee. 25 CRF 83-7. Petitioner has maintained political influence or authority over its members as an autonomous entity or historical times to present. Your grandfather ran that house for 50 years, and then when he died, his son ran for another 50 years. That's the 100 years right there. That's what they mean by authority. It doesn't mean non-native authority or non-indigenous authority. It just means authority overall. That's what it takes. Governance committee, number E, criteria 83-7E, membership list from descendants from historical times, a local tribe combined with a functional single autonomous political entity. In other words, who were your treaty signers? Who were your leaders? Okay. I find it very, very astonishing that we have people out there who are claiming relationships to Castro. I have the entire Castro family tree history in this thing right here, my files and so on. And when I see someone using that name and saying, wait a minute, well, where do they fit in? And I start asking some real serious questions, because what we're making reference to is treaty signers, people who have dealt with the federal government, people that the federal government acknowledges as being federal. In other words, if I talk to you and you sign this paper 100 years ago, the federal government acknowledges you under the VISTA of federal acknowledgement. I've recognized you as being the federal entity for this tribe or this nation or clan or band. Okay? Not, well, my grandmother told me. It doesn't work like that. It can't work like that because the federal government requires paperwork. That's the reason why. So, when I see people using, for instance, there was a petition that was done, the Eagle Feather Battle, that was going on for a couple of years. They actually cited the 1838 treaty. The 1838 treaty with the Lipan was my great-great-great-grandfather. He was the only signer of that treaty. So that means that this person who's filing this claim for feather use, he's not related to me, was making claim to, that's how he became Indian or Native American. Because he's claiming that treaty as being his treaty. How can that be? So, I hope you folks are following this, because this is pretty much what this petition is about. Petition is about acknowledging your family, yourself as an entity, your group, your extensions of your groups, your satellites, all that. It's all combined. And essentially, this is a social and economic report is what you're doing for the federal government. But it's broken down into 7 different categories that are required. The next one is 837F, Social and Cultural Committee. That's real simple. If our family used to travel to Lubbock, and they used to move around Oklahoma, up north, Wisconsin, to harvest potatoes and onions and things like that in the old days. And while they used to move off and do the migration to follow they call it the migration stream to harvest foods and so on, they would live and stay with the Native Americans and various tribes in those regions. They used to stay with the Kickapoo a lot in Wisconsin. That's where my grandmother's buried at. So we can form that through our family histories, which tracks we went. Now, the last part of this is G, is 837G on the second page. Neither petitioner or members are subject to congressional legislation. Okay, we're not subject to that because in 1932, the Muscalero tribe resubmitted its constitution as petition for federal acknowledgement as part of 1933-32 or Reorganization Act. They absorbed the Lipan. It used to be called the Muscalero / Lipan Apache tribe of New Mexico. They took out the word Lipan, and they put in its place forced all the Lipan on the reservation to become Muscaleros, which to this day they resent. And so what we're doing, what the federal government's asking here is that if you're not federally recognized and you're not using a name of a federally recognized tribe that has been extinguished, you're okay. There's another group out there that's using the tribe. They can't. Good luck, because that's an extinguished tribe. You cannot never repetition for a tribe that's been extinguished. That's rule number 1 in the federal reg. When you first open up that page, you'll see it right there in black and white. It's nothing that I made up. But that was the petition process in general, and this is where I'm now reaching out to all of our citizens to, if you have a specific field of expertise, if you're an attorney, if you're an accountant, if you're a business person, and you think your writing abilities and skills will help us in helping us write sections of the petition, that's great. For instance, I'll give you an example. What I want to do with the governance committee is have the governance committee go down to the library here in El Paso. I'm thinking El Paso, huh? San Antonio here, you go down to the 6th floor of the library. They have the microfilm of all the new San Antonio Express newspapers, and they talk, in the first few years, they talk about the activity of the Apache and the Lipans. Take those down and make a copy of it. And each copy has to have the title, the paper, the date, the page number, the column, the title of the column, who wrote it. And make a copy of it and write a small 3 or 4 line synopsis or summary of what they were talking about. And put it on a timeline for me, email it to me, then I incorporate it into the petition. This is where I'm needing the most help right now. Obituaries is the biggest one, that's the hardest one. Because back in the old days, everyone did obituaries. It's in the last 10 years people don't do obituaries. I don't know why. They just stopped because of the introduction to the internet and so on. But the obituaries is the hardest thing. But there are family members, I have 1 or 2 aunts that they have a Bible full of obituary cards. You know, if I can get my hands on those, just rent a copy of each one and front and back, it'd be great. But they won't do that because it's theirs and it's their property, and just so to alleviate that problem, there is a standard form that we have that upon request, I'll send it to you. It's a release of information where pretty much you identify the person, their address, their phone number, what you're writing on there is, I want to use the obituary for petition purposes only, period, and then sign off on it. That's all we can use it for. In other words, you're giving express permission to use that, but only that what they want. And so that alleviates that. Richard in the past has done DVD videos of, I think it was 30-some family members in total, and they're still always doing them. Sit down with your elders now and videotape them, or do a DVD of them before they leave. And so that's that's the kind of help that I'm reaching out for right now amongst our citizens to try to strengthen our federal acknowledgement committee, because we've already at the last meeting that we had was at Fort Clark. We had already discussed this as a council, that we had named individuals who are going to be on these committee, council members who are going to be oversight of these committees. Now we need we got the persons in charge, but now we need the people to start gathering information. And that's where we need the help of all family members, not just my family, your family, everybody. Anyone who wants to help can help that way. And then, of course, I put it together. But moving on to the veterans section. You folks don't have a copy of it, but I do here. The Lipans have a Gore Society that they've established, and they've established a veterans a group in California, because it's a much larger contingency of veterans. We have 31 veterans, Lipan veterans, that are living in California. It was a satellite breakoff. We all live in the central area. And the report came from Jonathan Bowers, who by chance last month received notice. The federal government has built every kind of monument you can think of for its veterans, except for Indigenous and Native Americans. Okay. Congress is now allocated for the building of a Native American memorial, Veterans Memorial. It's going to be located down at the mall, which is down in the same area where the Martin Luther King building, Lincoln, and so on, that area. Now, he's been elected one of 5 people, one of our citizens. We had delegated him as war chief a long time ago, because he's been in 8 different campaigns. He's really highly decorated. He's got out as a master sergeant, and he's got just about every ribbon you can think of except the Medal of Honor. Okay. His grandfathers were the Indian Scouts. They were out of Camp Bullis here. And so he has been elected as the only non-federally recognized Native American / Indigenous person in the committee of 5 members that's allocated by Congress to do every step from identification of how we're going to list our veterans, how many wars there was, and the actual names of the individuals who have fallen in combat. This mall is going to pretty much do a monolith of 4 different Native Americans in 4 different poses, 4 different nations, and the wall is going to be broken down by year with all the names of all the individual Native Americans that have passed on, of which, and we recently discovered 2 of the NDEP members, 2 of our Lipan members, are Medal of Honor winners. There's only been 16 Medal of Honor winners for Native Americans ever done or given, and 2 of those belong to our people. And it was really sad is that last year they told us there's not even a flag put up for these individuals. They're buried out there at Fort Clark all by themselves. Not even a little flag, nothing. It was like non-existent. Why? Because they're Seminole / Lipan. Because they figure that's the Potter Cemetery, leave them alone. So we wrote some letters to the White House expressing outrage, and I think this year was the first time in over 100 years that they've gotten a flag. So it's things like that that's what's going to change with having the memorial established. Jonathan he's also been photographed in Smithsonian. The Native American Smithsonian Institute had the new Native American Center that they have in Washington, D.C. His photographs up there, but he's going to be working with them and Congress to get this monument going. They figure another 5 years they'll have the final play. By 10 years they actually will have the actual monument done. But he's dedicated to that, and I'm real happy to announce that one of our own is going to be building this thing for us as veterans, for people who serve, male or female, doesn't matter. Okay. But anyway, I do have his report here. He's talking about his interaction with the Central Valley AVIA, which is American Indian Veterans Association. They're also hooked up with the Order of the Purple Heart, American Indian Veteran Foreign Wars, and they get a lot of support. They spend a lot of their weekends being on the drill team or flag bearers for various powwows in California. And so a lot of people in California know us by name. They know Richard because Richard had helped establish a lot of that. So we see him every once in a while at Fort Clark. He does come up. But this gentleman, like I said, he's one of us, and he's going to represent us well, hopefully. So if any of you all have, and I ask our citizens if any of you have photographs of any of your fallen India or Lipan family members who served in the military, doesn't matter if they served during the Civil War, just give him the photographs. So this will be part of that. Because along with the monument, they're going to build a museum. So it's to finally put a blanket over everything, to say, we've now covered all the different ethnicities in this country. We now represent all the fallen warriors, because we were here first. And so that was the theme of what they're trying to do with building the memorial. Okay. I'm done with the old business. I need a motion for new business.
Motion to discuss the new business.
Okay. Now what we moved around as we moved down the presentation for. Yeah. I'm only going to add one more item. I was going to add an item, but the item that I wanted to add is I need to bring some clarity as to what we consider recognized and not recognized here in Texas. During the 1980s, Texas legislative sessions were very detailed, and they call it the Sunset Act. And what it was is that at the time, the governor in play, Barbara, it was Barbara, I can't think of the name right now.
Barbara Jordan? Jordan.
She was the governor at the time, and she was having to having to squeeze the budget to nothing. Okay, because someone wanted the South City for the oil well, and they had to get it from somebody, so they got it from everyone. Okay, around this time, prior to this time, we had 3 tribes in 1976: Alabama Coshada, Kickapoos of Texas, and Tiwa. Okay, just a quick reminder: Alabama Coshada, the key word is Alabama. Second one, of course, is Kickapoo, which is out of Wisconsin, and the third one, of course, Tiwa, out of New Mexico. Okay, they were a tribe, a state-recognized tribe, for one day. The following day, they were no longer a state-recognized tribe, they became a federally recognized tribe. That was the deal that they cut with the federal government. Okay. Time rolls on. It's called the Sunset Act, because they said, we didn't get rid of all of the Indians. So the Sunset Act was designed and developed to squeeze away all the rights and all the legislative mechanisms. What is a legislative mechanism? It means the actual committee hearings, community meetings, historical data, everything that shows that you and your people belong here. But guess what? That got squeezed out. So the Texas Sunset Act recommendation was to remove, it was called the Indian Commission. They removed it. Okay, it's done. It's gone. I come into the state, I'm on a little different pretense. The Lipan are the only ones that have a treaty that's still valid. And I say, hey, my grandfather did this. So they went and acknowledged me. Okay. I have 11 for the Lipan Apache band. We have 11 Senate and House resolutions. Each one of them acknowledging us, who we are, who we belong to. Thank you for being here. You know, and so why is that important? Because there's 11 of them. Okay. We had some little differences with some other groups, but the state started to scratch their head and say, wait a minute, there's some issues here because we have individuals out there running around claiming they're state recognized from Texas and they're not. There's no such thing. There's no such mechanism to design. In design right now, the full House, the Senate can vote you a resolution, but they cannot vote you to become a federally or state recognized tribe, period. They don't have that mechanism. With becoming a state recognized tribe, the state has to literally provide you with housing, social, all the economic needs that you need. In other words, build you a home, provide you with food, provide you with money, all these things. Okay, they're not going to do that. So I said, how do we take care of this problem? I want to get some clarification here because when you go on the internet, okay, I'm almost finished with my degree. And when that time comes, I'm not going to be really too quiet anymore. Okay, and so I'm saying to myself, well, I need to bring to the attention of our citizens that when you're out in the community and you're arguing with someone about who's state recognized and who's not, come on. I'm going to read to you this right here. It's dated September 28, 1998. It comes from the Department of Interior and it's directed directly to Mr. Damorale, Mr. Stanton, which is part of Damorale's staff, Attorney General's Office of Texas. This is thank you for your letter August 10th, 1998. Regarding state recognition of non-federally recognized Indian tribes in Texas. In 1998, the Restoration Act provided federal recognition to two tribes which had enjoyed the state recognized status, the Alabama Coshada and Tiwa. Coincidentally, with its transfer of recognition was the abolition of the Texas Indian Commission, which was established in the previous status. Currently, our research indicates that there are 3 federally recognized tribes in Texas, Alabama Coshada, Kickapoo, and Tiwa. The state of Texas has not officially recognized any other tribe and makes no current provision for an Indian tribe to apply for state recognized status. Black and white. Okay, so and that's the end to my point. All right, so that our citizens know that. Can you wait? That from now on, when you hear someone claiming state recognition, okay, it's impossible. There's no mechanism, first of all. And this letter pretty much details that information for you. Why am I bringing this out now? Because I'm tired of having to explain myself over and over. I have members who have been members with us since the beginning of time and starting to doubt themselves and say, hey, wait a minute, are we state recognized or federally recognized? You're native, aren't you? You feel indigenous, right? You were born that way, right? You were taught, you were shown the way of the indigenous person, an Apache all your life. What changed? Well, I ran into this on the internet. Oh, okay. So my concern is if we have our younger membership looking on the internet and they're surfing and they find that some other group is claiming recognition over us, it's something that needs to be corrected by parents, by our elders, by our grandparents, uncles, and aunts who are members or citizens of our band to tell them it doesn't exist. You know, this is why in 2001 went to El Paso, Texas, and I asked at the time Senator Mala, he had temporarily established the Texas Indian Commission to have hearings. We had a hearing in El Paso and we had a hearing in San Antonio. That hearing, they didn't only expect it to last 2 hours. It lasted 12 hours. It was 12 o'clock midnight before we got out of there. There was so many speakers in Texas that wanted to talk about the acknowledgement process, why Texas didn't have it. And when it came to El Paso, we were at City Hall. They literally kicked us out of City Hall because it ran on and on and on. The conclusion of the committee, they recommended to the state of Texas, and at the time it was George Bush in office, W. The recommendation was reestablish the Texas Indian Commission. It's still there. You go on the internet, type in the Texas Indian Commission. for 2002, 2001, you'll find a report that clearly states, we recommend the establishment of the Texas Indian Commission, but it's not going to happen. Why not? We have the 6th largest concentration of Native Americans in the entire country as a state. San Antonio is ranked number 12 in the nation. We're the 12th largest city that are a concentration of natives in the entire country here. What's wrong with this picture? When you have so many Native Americans, indigenous people living in Texas from federally acknowledged tribes. We don't even have if you want medical, you got to go Albuquerque, Tucson.
No.
But I think this is important so that we can put a stop to it, so that our citizens go to a new year thinking, okay, well, all I've read in the past is, it's what you see on the internet is really, it shouldn't be taken. It should be, if you really, really want to look into it, go to your local Attorney General's office or Secretary of State, type in federal acknowledgement or state recognition, it'll send you the same thing that I have here. And I think it was important for me to bring this up into the meeting, because we had talked about it before in the past in the council. We left it alone, and said, no, we can't leave it alone anymore. I can't ignore it, because there are too many people emailing me saying, well, I'm better off over there with them because you guys are not doing nothing. Well, why is it that we have to do something? And I do know that I've been limited on what I've been doing because I've been in schooling. But my council members are taking up the slack. And I'm very grateful for them. They're all on both sides, all of my elders, and they've been there for me to help me. Knowing that I'm in El Paso teaching, they're doing things here for me that I customarily would do. But I'm in my writing phase. I'm in my last year of my PhD. So I'm done. What I'm writing now is purely about who we are as a people. And it's taken me 22 years to get to this point, and I'm here. So anyway, I just wanted for y'all to reserve the comments for that particular item. The next one that we wanted to visit would be the number 2, the Fort Clark in Brackettville. Richard, are you going to take the head on that one? Or?
Sure. Fort Clark, incidentally, I just moved in there this month, so I still live there, so eventually we'll work on other projects as well, and not just one day. It started out through the encouragement of some of my elders, my aunts and uncles, who, it's kind of a long story, but anyway, we ended up there, Anita and I, and it adds a little bit of conflict sometimes, some friction, which we expected. It's a fort, we're crying out loud, and it's soldiers. But right away, the first day, we built up, we reached an understanding with some of the people that were against us being there, because we were not soldiers by their terms. So understand that we had a perspective that they needed. Not only they needed, but the community needed at large. And because what I wanted to establish, first of all, was that we had been there way before there was a fort there. And then, of course, during the time there was a fort, we had cavalry scouts. And then, since then, we're been in and out of the military, lots of our family members. And we had a community of people of our families that would go there because they were interested in history and learned nothing about their own history. And so when I went there to learn about some of my own history, we were directed over to the cavalry history constantly, and which was fine. They're proud of their history, and they should be. That's who they are. Well, we built up a real strong relationship with them and a friendship. And I think last year, for those of you who went last year, we probably were almost pretty close to equal the numbers of cavalry soldiers we had Lipans there. So it was good to see that we have turned this whole thing around and not essentially run them out, but established in a symbolism is powerful when you show up in force. And yes, we had some people from California to Indiana and Wisconsin and Florida there, and all around Texas, but they were principally from right there. where the water comes from the earth. And that was one of our places. Mandy, his family is pretty strong in that community there. And some of our family were buried there at their, and some of the soldiers that Daniel mentioned earlier, buried not in the fort, but outside the fort, because in their eyes, they were not equal up to the white standards. Well, like I said, we've demonstrated to them that we weren't there to create any hate or us against them type of an atmosphere. We were there to educate not only our own selves, but our own community as well. So we were able to do that in a process that took some time to do, but anyway, it has worked very well, not just there, but at Camp Wood, at Fort Lancaster, Fort Stockton, Fort Davis, and a lot of these different forts that we've formed, McCavitt, that we've managed to go to and do the same thing. All the way up to Jacksboro and Fort Richardson and Fort Griffin up there in the north. And they're a little bit further to travel, but they found out real quick that distance is relative to me, because I will go anywhere. And I will not accept a penny from nobody. I will do it for my people, not for their money. And I'd rather be poor. But in a sense that they understand that, I refuse any money from them ever. And they understand where we come from. So we've been drawn into a lot of other places, even out of state, into California and New Mexico, to do similar type presentations for them there, because we represent our history. We're specific to our history. I know there's a lot of other indigenous people here around Texas that lived with us, and I hope that they represent themselves, because we will not represent them. We will represent our people. It's important that we do that and not represent ourselves and somebody else who's just, we're doing the same thing that they're doing. They're telling other people about us, which was incorrect. Same way here at the missions here in San Antonio, where we've been starting to show up and represent our own selves and tell the truth. This is our history. This is our family. This is where we come from. And so it was important. Anyway, March, it's the first weekend every year, the first weekend of March, and this year it's March 4th and 5th. It's Saturday and a Sunday. I'm always the first one to set up there, and I will not take my teepees down until every soldier has left. I want them to understand that we were here before them, and we're still here. And so, to me, I don't care if I have to spend a week there, I will not take my teepee down. And until I help them with theirs, and they're packed up and gone, then I will go. It took them 7 years to see me put it up or take it down. Nobody at the fort, in the fort, saw me put it up or take it down. It took them 7 years to see that. So, and they were, in time, very, very eager to learn, and that was good. So, and that's why we go there, to teach. But we wanted to teach them the right way. And it's the right way that I have learned. And out of respect, I've even taken to some of their functions and showed them how and why we do certain things. It's not just a pop-up tent that we're setting up here. It's a ceremony is what I'm doing, and so we want them to understand that this is what this is about. Anyway, we take that to heart, and I am grateful and humbled that so many of our families have shown up. Go ahead.
Sir, with the mention of the Congressional Medal of Honor recipients in that area at the Potter's Field, and not even the flag, have you, as the lead veteran, as a member of this council, as the elder for leading on veterans issues, have you contacted the Congressional Medal of Honor Society, a chartered organization whose responsibility it is to ensure that all living and all of those who've crossed over are properly recognized for eternity?
We're in a process of doing all this stuff. It takes some time. You know, it's typical that these functions are bigger than just one little group, and so it's a nationwide group that holds that function. And so we're in the process of doing it. We don't want to just do it on our own. We want to do it with with the assistance of the Seminole Scouts who have family there still buried there and living that go there, and we go there with them because there are families. There are families before they were Scouts, and there are families still now.
I contacted the Medal of Honor chair to the committee that handles oversight. They have us on the list. There are 2 members on the list, but there's no photograph location for cemetery. Everybody else has theirs. But the 2, AKA, red man / black man, it's not even a photograph. Why they got it? It has their names. So I actually called in person, and they said, in the process of, like as you said, get us chartered so that they make it a congressional act, because when Congress issues a Medal of Honor, they're supposed to issue a plaque,
Correct.
a metal plaque for each individual, and they're also supposed to put it on a map, and it's supposed to be delegated on state maps and county maps. They're supposed to have like signs. It's like going to your senator's office, go here. None of that exists. But yeah, you can walk at Fort Clark at the cemetery where they're at. You can walk 100 feet, and you got the all-white cemetery, and there's Medal of Honor winner there. That thing had a huge flag. It's all beautiful, and grass is cut, and they go out there and salute and do all this stuff.
Take a picture of
But
that.
our people over here is like, what's wrong with this? And so, but we are in the process of trying to correct that so that we can get the proper monuments and monoliths. We're also working with the state to get our Texas Rangers their monuments too. Because not only did we have, but Rudy's family also had Texas Rangers that fought with Jack Moore, and so we have those connections.
Any out in Fairview?
Fairview, yes.
Yes, his family members are actually buried next to this big
Jen
old
Boone.
huge name. It looks like a.
Jen Boone, brother,
Yeah.
what
I
about Jen
went
Boone,
to
brother?
Fairview.
Jumbo.
Yeah.
I went to Fairview.
What?
Where they honor all of those.
The main monolith is where Rudy's family's buried at.
It's a process because we have to, when we go, we just can't go talk to them. We have to go armed with GPS waypoints and locations and photographs and documents and on, all these things, and then contact them. Look, this is what you have. It's one of your Texas Rangers buried here, and he's not marked at all.
I understand, but going back to
Yeah, the Medal.
Congressional Medal
Right.
of Honor Society. Contact them directly.
I'll hear you.
Get the requirements directly from them. You speak about the Lipan within just the Lipan aspect. If somebody wants to template that for the Seminole, allow them that template of success. Lead from success. Learn from barriers. So just contact the Congressional Medal of Honor Society.
Right.
They will walk you through that process. Because their goal is not just the history of those who've crossed over, but the very fact that they had almost none whatsoever since Vietnam. They brought that issue forward to the Congress and said, how many warriors have been not recognized since Vietnam, and yet we've had these engagements. From Grenada forward. You need to tell me none were worthy of congressional. Therefore, go to that organization. They're on the internet, all of their contact, how to go about that process, and they'll gladly send you all the information.
Thank you. We'll continue to do that. So,
Okay.
but we do like as we described earlier, we need everybody's assistance and help.
Yeah, and this is the kind of assistance that we ask for as a council, is that if you have something that you want to share with one of our council members, give them that information so that it makes you stronger and it makes us stronger, because then we're able to move as a group, one group, not little pieces here and there. More effective that way.
Yeah, that's something.
Yeah.
Yes, my name is Richard Valdez. I was adopted when I was very, very young. Now I came into where they found out that I'm a Chicao lawyer. Now, my uncle's name is Macario Garcia. He's a Congressional Medal of Honor out of Houston, Texas. I have the pictures of him with President Truman giving him his Congressional Medal of Honor. I got the picture of him and President Kennedy with the Congressional Medal of Honor. And then we got pictures of, him, my aunt, and my family, and so forth in Houston. He got killed in a car accident. So in Houston, they have parks, streets after his name. There is a gymnasium in Colorado Springs, I believe, under his name, Macario Garcia. So I have all those pictures, and I want to share them. So I can talk to somebody and see how I can do this, being that, I'm myself just getting myself prepared to find out my life, where I came from. And I'm already 56 years old. And I still got my mother, my father adopted me. Mom's going to be 94 next week, and dad's 93. I live with them, I think. But anyway, and I want to share those pictures. Can I share those pictures with you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Let me move this road because the last part is the longest part. Any information that you have, we'll be more than welcome to have it, because being on council is hard enough, and knowing as much as you can so that when members or citizens ask us, we're able to say this is what it's about. But we now are going to be requesting. We haven't done enrollment in 3 years. This will be the first time in 3 years that we're going to be asking the enrollment officer to do her report and recommendation so that we as a council can vote on it today. It was on the previous agenda where we had asked that she produce a report for us, so the names of the individuals that are going to be enrolled today. Mandy, you have to. Mandy Garcia, our enrollment officer. Just say, I recommend the following.
I recommend the following applicants for enrollment to the committee. First, Kevin Luke Davalos, Margaret Amelia Davalos, Willie Davalos, Eleanor Davalos, Larry Burley, Barry Burley, Joel Burley, Troy Burley, Zachary Burley, Janie Burley, Alan Burley, Lauren Burley, Brittany Burley, Brian Burley, Bethany Burley, Victoria Burley, Blake Burley, Hilario Rubalcaba, Elia Fonseca, George Gomez, Autumn Gomez, George Gomez, Alexander Gomez, Andrea Gomez, Samuel Johnson, Noah Johnson, Andrew Johnson, Vanessa Rubalcaba, Jesse Mora, Naya Stotler, Meadow Rubalcaba, Jade Garcia, Willow Garcia, Raymond Torres, Mary Melendrez, Maria Alejandro, Yolanda Vigil, Joey Vigil, Christy Vigil, Jason Davalos, Victor Davalos, David Davalos, Jeremy Davalos, Mary Garcia, Marissa Marquez, Carlos, Elaine Espino, Edna Garcia, Jesse Rodriguez, Brianna Gonzalez, Adrian Gonzalez, Eric Gonzalez, Joaquin Gonzalez, Yvette Gonzalez, Adrina Candido, Anthony Gomez, Lynette Furtado, Irene Esparza, Eleanor Esparza, David Esparza, Richard Stockwell, Madeline Stockwell, Scott Stockwell, Luis Esparza, Pedro Esparza, Elijah Esparza, Amber Mueller, Leonard Sandoval, Matthew Sandoval, Christina Roos, Tommy Perryman, Joseph Vigil, Eloisa Garcia, Elijah Montiano, Damian Montiano, Brittany Singleton, Andrew Singleton, Christina M. Roos, Xavier Diego Roos, Joe Angel Esparza, Ricardo Gonzalez, Joe Angel Jr. Esparza, Alexis Nicole Gonzalez, Jesse Gonzalez, Joe Angel Esparza III, Anthony Paul Roos, Louis Irene Cardona, Michael Pena, Krista Rangel, Augustin Rangel, Elias Rangel, and Aiden Rangel. And I would also like to add Richard Gonzalez from California. You have his files. Just need them signed.
I need a motion. Rudy, motion.
Motion to accept.
Motion to accept the new applicants for permanent enrollment into Lipan Apache, Texas. Second it. Second it. Show of hands for yay and nay. For it? Against? Okay, we've, the names that have just been read have been all adopted as new citizens of Lipan Apache, Texas. Congratulations if you're here. We have another bunch that's coming through for the March meeting at the Fort Clark. It's just that we couldn't get them all written out, all finished up. It's now to talk about what it takes to get the enrollment file ready. When we get the application, it's a one-page application, genealogical report. You do the family tree report. If it's just you, your birth certificate, your mother, father birth certificate, your grandfather, grandmother birth certificates, okay? Death certificates if you have. If you've been divorced, it goes. So you're thinking a file is just 2 or 3 pages? No, it's thick. Okay, we have a computer system designed from the Bureau that scans each page. You can only upload 1 page at a time because it goes to their central database. Okay, so we have all this. So one file can have over 400 pages, and we do have something like that. Okay, and then next to all that, you have, if you have a genealogical history already done by somebody, copy that. You still need all the birth certificates, everything. This is what the Federal Bureau of Acknowledgement asks. OFA asks, requires this of each person who's becoming enrolled. There is no exception. There is no affidavits, no testimonies. It doesn't work like that. I had an individual who said, well, my grandmother, I have no disrespect for you or your grandmother. It's just the federal government requires us this documents. So there's other ways and other techniques that are used to proving an individual's genealogical data. It can be used as references. If your grandfather didn't have a birth certificate, but he was an outlaw and everybody knew he was an Indian outlaw or Apache outlaw, and there's like 6 or 7 articles written on him by 6 or 7 different newspapers, that's proof. That's what's called a secondary mode of verification. I can use that. Then I get a historical account written by maybe some scholar, somebody at the university who was bored, they want to write about bandit Indians, they would write about it. And so you put those 2 and 2 together, you got a scholarly citation, and you have a public citation, a community citation, and then a testimony from somebody. Then you can use it. Up until that point, you can't use it. So it makes it really, really difficult. You know, I know that there's a problem with other groups that have such high number of enrollees, but no family tree. How does that work? Government doesn't even look at them. And in fact, my understanding is if there's one file that's bad, you got to send a minimum of 250 files, found individuals, for federal acknowledgement for enrollment process to verify that you're historically, genealogically tied to a Lipan descendant, a minimum of 250. If one of those 250, let's say 249, is missing a birth certificate to his grandmother, guess what they do to all the files? You done lost your petition to become federally acknowledged because of one file. So I've had my difficulty. The struggling is the hardest part is that, you know, getting acknowledgement of individuals takes a long time, and there's a lot of individuals that get upset with me and says, no, you got to understand, we have to research this. Not just the enrollment officer can only do so much. I research it, and then we have other scholars who help research their fields of history. You know, when I start to see individual letters that say my great great grandfather was Victorio, Victoria was 2 states away and 200 years after the fact. You know, that automatically nicks your application. Why are you so strict? Because this is what the federal government requires. What happens is that once the federal government receives your petition, especially for a genealogical position, they'll leave it intact. They'll have an expert go type it all up. And it's like strings of timelines, and all those timelines have to hit just right. Once they can do that, they submit the report to the congressional office to say, okay, we have a group that has each one of its 250 members they can prove that they're Lipan. The next step now is, okay, what is the next step? We're gonna make a copy of all this information, submit it. So 100 years from now, someone can say, yes, this is the proof that individual needed to become federally acknowledged. Each one of you that is being enrolled into the band, 100 years from now, well, each one of you will probably have a book, it's yay thick, about you, just you alone. It's in the congressional record file. That's what they're doing. So if you're going to send thousands of names all at once, you're looking at 50 years before they process everything. You do the minimum, which what we're going to do is 250, hopefully. You know, it's going to happen fast. It's not going to be, especially if you have a tribe that's bearing down and saying, acknowledge it. One of the things that we're looking at is that we're formulating ties. The Muscaleros already accepted us. Choctaw Apaches, the Oklahomas, Apache tribe up north. They all know who we are. We visited them many times. We've met with them. The minute we put our petition in, they're going to support us. We're going to do what the Kickapoo and the Tiwa did to the state of Texas. Their tribes from the north, from New Mexico, and from Wisconsin made some phone calls to the Bureau of Indian Affairs and says, make them federally recognized. Interesting to find out that the 3 tribes in Texas, it took them 12 years to become federally recognized. 12 years. There's tribes that are still waiting to be read. They've been there for 70 years. That's how long the process has been in place. So anyway, I thought I'd share that. I'm going to open it up to a form now. Richard, you want to manage the form? If anybody has questions?
In addition to that, and there's many different factors that go to this process for enrollment, and a lot of it, some of it, is because some of us may have at home, a letter or some kind of document, and we have, saying our grandfather or something to that effect. You have to, where did you get that document? Who wrote it? And where did it come from? And when was it? But all this type of thing, not just like as a document and that's it, period. Because you could have wrote it yesterday. But it has to be more specific than just a document. It has to be a document written by a person when, during a period of time and speaking about who, not just in general. Anyway, and there's a lot of other factors that go through this, and so we all have to go through this. Not just we're picking on one person. We all have the same standard. There's speaking of board over the thing. We have an organized board society that we actually initially started in California because at that time I was president of the American Indian Veterans Association for California or Central California. And so we saw the importance of it because a lot of the board dances in California, which was a big thing, because a lot of federally recognized Indian tribes in California, and the reservations, a lot of them do it, and they would have these board dances, and there would be sometimes where there would be nothing but Lipans. There could be 20 of us, and not one Kiowa, Comanche, or even California Indian. And but they were very curious because when we first started, it would just be me and my brother, or me and my cousin, or a few of us. But then eventually grew. And it went on to being grand marshals of their parades and being in charge of all their functions. And it wasn't because I was doing anything special, but because I had the support of our family. Our families who had a very powerful reputation here in Texas and carried on all over California. And and they saw what we did was right. We didn't try to, pick on anybody. We didn't try to do anything other than understand why we were there to begin with, to do good work. It's healing, it's spiritual, it's cleansing, it's all those different things. And we always included in all of our functions our families. We never excluded our families, our children, or elders, anybody, everybody needed to be there. Because we were, as veterans, as a lot of warriors, we weren't only warriors because of our families. We understood that. We understood that they had just as about an equal part as we did, responsibility, that we owed them a grateful thank you for supporting us when we were in the military. And sometimes it was, as some of the veterans know, very tough experience. I'm a combat veteran, and I owe a debt to my Creator, first of all, but to my mother, to my grandmothers, my aunts, my brothers, my sisters, my cousins, who prayed every single day. Because I'll tell you right now, I wouldn't be here had it not been for them. I'm a firm believer. So I am a firm believer in inclusion of everybody, and principally understand that why we're there to begin with, not just to look good or with the energy or not. It's not that. It's not that at all. So anyway, that we need to carry on somehow, and it's not grown here. I don't understand why. So what we have to do as a Lipan organization, a board society, is form or bring that here and do it for each other, with each other, and let it grow to other communities, because we can't. I've tried including some of the other Native communities around, and somehow they all get back in Oklahoma, back in there. We do it this way. This isn't Oklahoma. This is what we always have, and this is the way we do it here. And I've been to Oklahoma with the Kiowas. I've been to the Comanches, with the Plains Apaches, and with all those indigenous platforms, and done their forts up there, and done their ceremonies up there, and that's what I've learned from the eldest elders, as they talked to their own communities and grounded them and got their attention when they said, "Look at the Lipan. This is what we used to do to heal you. Why aren't you go dancing? Why aren't you doing it this way?" Now, I was humbled that here's an elders would say that and get their attention that way, because I was just doing what I felt I should do, my responsibility to do it, to give thanks to my Creator, to my families, for just being here today, every day. And so we need to do that as Lipans here, and get our societies here together, so we can do it right, and teach other people how we do it. They don't have to do it like we do. Every one of us is all different, but this is how we do it, and this is how we do it on our homes. It's necessary, because this is who we've always been, and this is what we're going. This is what we're teaching, because as young ones, I learned long ago when I first started talking. I used to be horrified like you, speaking in front of people. I couldn't get words out of my mouth, and I couldn't think right. But one of the first times I spoke to the audience of children, 4th and 5th graders, and it filled up a whole auditorium. I was starting to do a few like this. I go, I can do that. I can take that very easily, little kids. So I started singing a song just to get their attention, and stopped. I said, I didn't come here to educate. I didn't come here to entertain, but come here to educate. So no more singing. So I started talking and teaching them, and more were brought in, more were in. One had worked his way to the front, and they were already listening, really attentive. And then when they were all finished, the principals looked back and said, "We can 5 more minutes." So I wrapped it up, and so one of the kids that was on his way up says, "I see the drum. Can you play us a song or sing a little bit?" And the kid next to him, couldn't have been much older than him, said, "They didn't come here to entertain you. They came here to educate you." I learned something that day from that little kid. I thought, this is amazing. We used to teach our young, but teach them the right things, not just, a lot of words coming out of our mouth. And so it's good that we all learn from each other, including them. We need to learn from them, because they're learning from us. We think they're not paying attention. They've probably heard more than we have here, and including all the things that they've done. And so I don't look at it as an interruption. I look at it as a blessing because this is our future. And so I always see the young people around all of our functions, and to keep us honest. This is where we're going. We need to bring them along. I know that there's a lot of other functions that I could talk. I won't talk about everything because I could talk all day. We have to vacate here before 2 months. I forgot what else was talking about.
On the family, the historical records and all that, genealogy, do they have to be Texas papers only?
Oh,
That
no,
includes
they don't.
Mexico, Coahuila,
It could be,
Nuevo León,
but they have to be
Tamaulipas?
referenced, not just a paper from somewhere in Mexico. Where in Mexico? Who wrote this and why they write? You know, it all pretty. A lot of it is spelled out in the document, but some of it is not. Like for instance, if I write you a document, hey, you're Lipan, you're my cousin or whatever. I write, well, and I don't sign it. Well, who wrote this? And what is this?
It would have to be the missionaries, right behind they'll have it with a Spanish name, but right behind the name they'll have Indio. Indio, Mestizo, Coyote.
Yeah, but who wrote that? And so if say some mission, particular mission, or particular padre, or particular soldier, or particular somebody, mayor, somebody had to have put pen to that paper. Who was it? And when did they write that? Not just written. Yeah, good document.
Okay, yeah. I had a couple questions earlier, and can we answer the questions again? One thing I know that happened to me, my father, Andres Castro, Guadalupe Castro, was born in West Lipan, Texas, 1920 something. Guess what? They don't have record of it. See, if I did genealogy and I went to the Castros, I learned, what I learned was there's something fantastic. I thought, the white people, they got records. The Mexicans don't. Because a lot of my family comes from Coahuila. And the Castros, Juan Castro and Cuelgos and all of them, they headed that way too, It was Coahuila. That was a part of the territory. So the Mexicans, they would make triplicate copies of birth certificates from the beginning of the conquest in the 1500s. One went to Spain, Madrid, one went to Mexico City, and one was kept right there in the local archives. The United States did not become law to have a birth certificate until the 1920s. So, no wonder why I can't find my mother's, who was born in Relumpico, Texas, or my father's, born in West Lipan, Texas, because it wasn't the law. So I cannot understand how you're saying, Mr. Daniel, that the federal government is requiring that we have birth certificates from the 1900s when my parents don't have one from the 1928 and 1930s. They don't have it.
Well, we have it.
But Mexico has them. Mexico has had birth certificates from the 1500s, especially in Coahuila.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily what we see now today. We take my son, my grandkid, who down there born, and he goes an official looking blue document, pretty blue, has a dollar looking sign thing, and it would be that kind of document. The documents that were originally kept were much different than that. They were all written, and so those are the documents that the churches kept. And a lot of them were marriage and census reports. There's a lot of documents, and they're free. They don't cost nothing, and you don't have to go to Mexico to do it. And I learned this from white people. A white lady was 92 years old and sitting in front of me when I took a genealogy class, and she had gotten all her information from Luxembourg, and she never left California. And I go, what? And I know my family, my parents, my grandparents, and she was adopted. And how did you know this information? So she went over all this process. And so that process is pretty simple. You start with yourself and keep on going. And never let up. And his family history centers are very good at keeping documentation. A lot of people have added their own stuff in, but you stick with your information.
Oh, my information, if I go to my mother, I don't have any documentation. If I go to my father, there's no documentation.
You can do it from here. Not close to one.
What do you mean?
I'll tell you later.
I mean, there's no birth certificate for my father.
No, you're not gonna find it. There's none for.
For 19, he was born
But, you know,
1928. He doesn't have one.
We have documentation, there is documentation.
Okay? He doesn't have one. And so
No,
on.
you're talking government documentation.
Yes, I'm talking about, well, that's what you had said, birth certificates, right? You want birth certificates.
Yeah, but there,
Where there's other sources.
when they baptize too, what people was or is birth certificate before anything started. When you get baptized anywhere on this side of the border, that means.
Or on the other side of the border, anywhere in the world, man.
May I speak? Okay.
Yeah, Jackson was a city hall
Baptism,
back then.
baptism, okay.
Folks, birth certificates, as we know, is the source document in the modern world. For those of you who run into a barrier, the accepted alternative forms of documentation that have been talked about here are those things called the baptismal, whether you were going through the Roman Catholic Church, the Baptist Church, whatever religious value system in your family tree, that is accepted also. Property deeds of records here in the Southwest, such things called rancherias, records are kept there too. Those are historical societies. So when you come across the barrier and say, I can no longer obtain the modern age birth certificate to assist me in my quest of learning my family's lifeline, go to these folks. They'll give you the accepted alternative methods and you can continue your journey.
Even a death certificate.
Look, last year I went to a genealogy conference here in San Antonio. There must have been 2,000 people there. I was the only dark person there. One. Everybody there was white. Nobody except me had color. We need to take over our history, our culture, our genealogy, so we can do it and help each other. And because they can do it. All their answers, you think they kept official-looking government documents in Germany, and Italy, and England? Oh, no. They didn't do it there either. So how are they able to do this stuff? And so simply from here, they don't have to leave their houses hardly, or even the town where they live. And so those are things are doable. So it's something that we need to understand, that there is a way. To get a hold of me in time, I can show you the process. I have sample documents and stuff for everybody to see. And when I go, I'll be at the powwows here, and I'll have an informational day. Come up to me, sit next to me, stay there, and don't leave. Bug me until I leave. Then I'll be the last one to go. And that's okay, because I will show you how to do it. I'll have the copies here. And that's all we need to do is help each other. And that's how we
Just real quickly, because
Yeah, my other question that I had earlier,
I want to real quickly, because we're short on time right now, because we're supposed to be out here by a certain time. Just real quickly, to answer a lot of the questions for those people who are missing documentation, the best way to start is go to the local cemetery where your family members are buried. Okay? When you get there, every phone has a GPS on it. Hit the GPS, get the GPS coordinates for the actual cemetery, type the name in and save it. Take a photograph of it and start from there. And bring it to us and we'll take it out there from there. That's what we're going to be asking our members, is to give us GPS coordinates for all the cemeteries. There's some cemeteries that are not even listed on the county or state census
anymore.
but we know where they're at. As you can see them. You go across. I mean, you can't help it. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Daniel, this is directed to you, this question, okay? Since I live in the valley, and there's Mr. Robert Soto over there with his Lipan Apaches down there. I know I go to his powwows most of the time. I think he stated since 2014 they are state recognized. He's not telling the truth then. Is that correct?
What I mentioned before earlier is that there is no state recognized tribes according to the state and federal government.
Okay. I just want to know straight out. That's cool.
I mean, and we have the document. Actually, I'll give you the copy that I have because I have many of these.
This is, Matt,
This is something that's not.
since him being a
not
pastor, I would tell him, Robert, you shouldn't say that.
You know, we're the way I look at it right now is that we're not in competition with the tribe.
Oh, no.
Let them do what they need to do for themselves and for their better interests. We know what we're doing, and we leave it at that. So that, you know, when we go to powwows, people ask, they start bringing up old things 10, 15 years ago. Leave it alone. We're okay with it. We're moving forward.
Well, the reason why I mention that is because a long time ago, about 18 years ago, whatever, Robert had given me some sign up to be part of his tribe, the Lipan, you know. And I kept the forms I got at home. I still got them at home. But I never did because something in my spirit said, no, put it away, you know. And when I saw that you guys were going to have this meeting, I thought, hey, my heart said, this is where I belong with you guys, you know. But somehow I thought that something about Robert's organization that just doesn't sound right to me, okay? And so on. So that's why I brought it up, okay?
That's good. That question.
Go ahead.
So we are aware throughout the state that Governor Perry did sign in a law that the state of Texas designates the last Friday of every September as the recognition day for the Indians of Texas.
Right.
But I'll let you take it from there.
The designation was a start. If you put all 50 states in a line, Texas is always at the bottom when it comes to Native issues or indigenous peoples issues. What they did is they worded it in a way that says indigenous peoples will be acknowledged, peoples descendants of the missions, descendants of the Catholic orders, descendants of the first 28 families of Texas, because there was only 28 to start with, then it went to 100. And what they're doing is the state of Texas is saying, thank you for coming to Texas 500 years ago, and thank you, the individuals who were here, for what we took from you, and we're sorry. It's essentially what they did. It's a resolution. And the governor signed the resolution, make it in a day, but it's a beginning. Why is it a beginning, and why do we support it? Because today is we acknowledge this is a day on a state calendar. Tomorrow will be let's reopen the Texas Indian Commission, and next thing you know, let's recognize the rest of the tribes in Texas. It's a start. It's kind of like what I did 20 years ago when I brought the Texas Indian Commission back to life just for that one legislative session to do this report. That report is still valid. If I get a Democrat governor in there, I will tell him, drop it. It's time to do it. And he'll do it. Because one of its famous senators was Senator Frank Modla. He had died in a fire here in Texas. He's the one who sponsored that. And out of his memory alone, they would do it. So to answer your question, it is a valid measure, even though it's only a resolution format. But you got to look at it. How many other states have done that? How many other states have said, we apologize to the indigenous peoples who were here before us for what we did wrong to you? It's a start, especially for Texas. Remember now, the two most racist politicians that we know, Abbott and who's that other one?
Lamar.
Abbott
Lamar.
and
Lamar.
Well, not Lamar. I mean President.
Presently?
Yeah, Abbott is the governor, right?
Correct.
And then who's our two senators from Texas? That
Cronin?
the other one. Cornyn. They both were attorney generals. And guess what? The attorney general who handled our case for the Live Oak Treaty, in the very end, in a little tiny paragraph, 23 pages later, pretty much says, well, if we go to the state Supreme Court, we think we'll win. Didn't answer the question. He acknowledged in his write-up, even though it's 28 pages, he acknowledged that that treaty is still valid, but the only ones who can invoke it are descendants. And the very last, he says, well, if that ever occurs, we can't go to the Senate or to the House of Texas to take it away, because they're the ones who ratified it, even though it was 150 years ago. The only ones who can take it away from us is state Supreme Court. And I'm ready for the day when we have to go in front of the state Supreme Court and say, we want our rights back.
we're getting real close to doing that now. So when we do the petition, it's going to be petition is a series of lawsuits that you're doing. The first lawsuit in that petition will be validate that Treaty 1838. So that says everything from the Guadalupe River all the way to the Rio Grande is ours. Essentially what it says. So hopefully that answered your question on that one. Yeah. So that's it's a resolution that we'll honor and then we'll take it. That we do every year. Yes.
Yeah, I'm here.
Fidel?
I'm on.
So,
All right.
I talked too long. Okay. Any more questions? Because I know that we're like about 7 minutes from being like.
They have another function starting right after it. So when we came to do reserve the room, we were like to talk to the director, and so we got this. So that's good. So, and by the way, they asked if we could one of these glass display cabinets. So we're going to put some of our stuff under one of them. They'll be there for a year. So starting, I think, next February, they said. So,
Where's Bracketville?
Bracketville's this side of between Uvalde and Del Rio.
But and your side will be Houston.
Real quick, just something that was brought to my attention. The coming of age ceremony. If any of you are interested in that still, for young ladies, it's a puberty ceremony for the young ladies. Remember, this is not an individualized event. This is an event that the whole family has to take part of. The idea and the concept of a puberty ceremony or the rite of passage ceremony is for the whole family to help, not just mom and pop. It doesn't work like that. And you go to these reservations, you go to Muscalero, a family spends about $25,000 cash. Each. They have to set a deposit down with the tribe just to have it. And that doesn't count the food that they buy. Every person in that family, that extended family, uncles, aunts, brothers,
Cousin, second cousin,
and the
third
men and
cousin,
women
fifth cousin.
know their roles. You don't have a woman telling a man what to do. A man doesn't tell the woman what to do. They're individualized, and they do their own thing. They get it all done, and they have this beautiful event for this young lady to honor her and her passage. We're having those Mingo, our elder Mingo, Carrillo. He's not here today, but he wanted to. I know he had talked to some of you about the coming of age ceremony. Email me or Richard so that we can send you the email to his son, because he doesn't have email, to ask about what are the requirements for preparation, because some families will cook, some families will set up tents, some families will do guarding, and then do you have a host sponsor? Do you have the padrina or the godmother? He needs one. That'll
Is it gonna be in April? April, May?
It's pending, either April or August. But it might be 3 girls instead of 2 girls.
I don't know. It's once a year, but I don't know when he's planning on doing it. But
August?
I know that he had it the last time in Mathis, Texas, and it's a real nice area where we had it. And it was a 2-day event the last time we
Yeah, last time it was.
So it's not too long. You don't want to be at Muscalero. That's a 7-day event, and that's 7 days where you don't sleep for you ladies.
Oh man, that's good.
So anyway, I just wanted to make mention of that. Stay in contact with that.
But do it way ahead of time. Don't do it the last year right before.
10 to
It's
15
something
days.
to prepare sometimes when your daughter is very young. And do that preparation.
If you want to go
Any-
like during July,
Yeah, we can-
July weekend.
We'll still be around, so you can talk about
Yeah.
that. A motion to adjourn?
No, hang on.
Second. Yeah.
Fidel, anything you want to add to the?
No.
Richard? No? Good. Motion to adjourn meeting?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
It is 11 o'clock, I think, right?
Might as well call it.
7:55.
Yeah.
Okay. Motion second?
Second.
Meeting closed. The next meeting will be held at Fort Clark on Saturday, which is, I think, the 5th. We usually have it right next to the TV. So keep that in mind. That's when we'll have our next meeting. That's when the second round of enrollment will be done.
So that we'll close off enrollments once again for another 2 or 3 years. It's a lot of time expended too for each file. So
At Fort Clark, normally what I've been doing with the help of the people there is arranging a residence for everybody to stay in. So it varies. We've been constantly every year getting upgraded. So last year we were given a place that they normally rent out for $700 a day. We got it for nothing. And they do it for us to be there. All you gotta do is show up. So some of you get rooms, there's rooms available around in other places, that's fine, but you know, the place is there. And of course I have a place there now too, and they do have camping. And if you're one of the participants or dancers or anything like that, they charge you nothing. It's free. It's not just free for us, it's free for all the soldiers and people there. But it's good to do it at a place there, and especially when you got so many people coming together like that. It's been very good in the last bunch of years now, maybe 10 years we've been there. But anyway, it's very good, a 2-day event. Friday is a school day, obviously. Well, kids are brought through by a lot, buses load, and the Saturday's public. So,
thank you. All right, mission adjourned. Thank you for your presentation.